Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. Got another mix breakdown for you from my latest EP, The Good Life, that I co-wrote and produced with Grammy-nominated producer and all-around talented guy, Ill Factor. The song I'm breaking down today for you is called Came to Win. This is sort of our anthemic song. I'm going to go through and show you like the sounds we were getting, the plugins I was using, how I got the mix to come together, and sort of show you all my settings and all that fun stuff. Let me give you a taste of that track here.
So just back down. We've got this fire burning out. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning out. It won't go away. We've got this fire burning up. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning up, and we won't go away. We've got this fire burning up. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning up, it won't go away.
Yeah. We've got. There you go. That's sort of that repeating raucous sort of anthem hook at the end. It's a little more gritty in the verses. It kind of goes like this.
Out of our way. There's nothing that you can do to stop us now, so don't even try.
Right. It's real fun. So this song, like a lot of what Ill and I do together, he'll play with cool sounds, and then that'll bounce to me, and I'll come up with ideas, and that'll bounce to him, and then we'll put a good beat behind it, and then it evolves and grows. And so I believe we wrote this song starting with this initial sound, right? We just worked through this little bass sort of synth. It's real percussive, really aggressive. And he put this drone behind it, which reminded me of the X-Files. That's the foundation of the song. And a lot of the songs, again, we do together start with something like that we build from. So those were the sounds that influenced all the other sounds. Let's start with the drums, because these drums by themselves, while cool, ended up being a little weak until we got them right. So if we take off any of the processing, here's the drum beat. Nice, kick and snare loop with claps, right? Pretty self-explanatory. But when you added all the synth stuff, it got really weak, especially when you had this little awesome snare roll here. I love that. Bop, 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 bop. Right, and it's also on the live drum track. It sounds cool, but in context with the mix, it was getting lost.
We've given it all.
And it just, the drums are just so weak. So this was like taking good drum sounds and trying to give them smack. So a couple of things we did here. Let's flip over to the drums in mix view. On the live drum track, I tried to focus on giving it some top end and some thickness with harmonic saturation. So I'm using Revival from Slate Digital. I love what it does here, because if you take away, let's take away each of these. I am using the virtual channel to get a little bit more just sweetness on these drums. That's pretty subtle, but let's add the harmonic exciting here. you can hear that top end. Remember, this is not an EQ boost. This is adding top end harmonics to the signal. So we're actually adding frequencies that aren't there. And then I even added some thickness, but you really hear the air on the snare. And then we added the 1176, the blue stripe, which is sort of the modern tweak of the 1176 compressor. So let me turn this on for some smack. So what we're doing with this one plugin is, and you can hear the smack coming in, we're doing parallel compression with one plugin. And it's because they have a nice little mix knob, and I love when compressors add a mix knob, because then what we can do is I've got a 12:1 ratio, right? With a slow attack, fast release, just crushing this audio, and I've got it about 50%. So like if I did 100% on this compressor, it's just the crush sound. 50/50 gives me a perfect blend of the uncompressed with the overly compressed. So you can keep the dynamics, but also have the excitement and the energy. So you can hear where we took just this live drum loop with just some harmonic excitement and compression. Yeah, it's louder. We could gain it down, but I think I adjusted the gain with actual fader, so I was fine with the level that it was at. It's really just bringing out the aggression. So parallel compression on your drums. In this case, it was a loop, and there's no cymbal, so it's a great track to just slap a compressor on in a mix knob. And again, if you can add some harmonics to your drums, especially if you're working with drum loops, you can really bring in a realism that's not there. And we try to do something similar with the snare track. So I literally copied and pasted the same processing on the snare track. Here it is by itself. Turn it on. Right, it's thicker, it's a little fatter, it's got more level, I get it, but a little more sustain, a little more tone on the snare. It's not as choppy. Like by itself, it cuts off pretty quickly. Listen to the snare; it just like dies out, like a little kid playing it on a kid's snare. This is not that much better, but it's a little bit better, and it really pairs nicely with the live drums. And then the kick drum tracks, what did we do here on the kick drums? So this is a fun plugin. So this is the Custom Series Lift by Slate Digital, and this is like parallel EQ. So cool because it's the same process of parallel compression, the concept behind it, like doing something extreme, right? And then blending it in. But his high lift, low lift, you got a present and a silky. So you get like two settings on the top end, you got big and you get punchy on the low end. These settings just are so musical and they work so well. So on the live, here's just the regular kick drum track. Before. Listen to the low, and that's all I'm adding is the bigness. I'm trying to make it rounder. So here is before, after. It's just adding that thump down there, which is really, really nice. So that was nice on the kick, and then the live kick, I did a little bit different. I did more on the top end. I wanted some silky top end. Take a listen. It's just bringing out the clarity and the beater head, right? So because these two kick drums together make the kick drum sound. Before. After. not as dramatic as what we did with the live drums and the snare, but it really is a sweet way to EQ because it's doing it in parallel. It's just a fun little plugin. So I'm trying to bring out some of the drums. So I feel like if we just take away the drum plugins, we brought the drums to a better place. Do you hear how it sounds like the drums are now in a bigger room? It's almost like more reverb. It's that extreme compression on the live drums and the snare that give you more of the room sound. It's just a great way to get that sense of like rock and roll. And really rock and roll drums, big monstrous drums, they could be used on rap and country also. But when you want that crunchy, raucous drum sound, is the sound of the room. And if you don't have a room, but you have a drum loop that was recorded in a decent room, if you compress the snot out of it with some parallel compression, you can get more of that pumping room sound that brings out just the excitement in your drums. So I spent some time there. That was basically it on the drums. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. I didn't do much with the basses. They sounded good. But we had strings. So towards the end of the song, if we go to the end of the song, there's a lot happening. There's this whole string motif, which is really cool. I'll just sample. Here's all the strings and brass by themselves. Right, it's so fun. So all I'm using on these is I wanted to bring them out a bit more because they were getting lost in the mix. So let's just take the strings, for example. I'm just using the SSL channel for top end EQ. So I'm doing a shelf boost at around 8K, and I'm doing it about 8 dBs. So sorry, exactly at 8K, 8 dB boost. This is a shelf, just taking it at 8K and everything above and just lifting it. So simple. That's the only thing I'm doing, and that's going to give you more of the feel of the strings, so they pop out a little bit more. On the left, I've got the synth. Trying to bring out sort of the top upper mid range as well. This is around 6K. I gave it a 6 dB boost. That's where I felt like this synth stuck out when I made these EQ decisions while listening to the rest of the mix. Again, listen to the whole mix while you make these EQ decisions so that you can know if they're working in context with the mix. You never do this in solo because it's pointless. It's really about, I'm in this point, I'm listening to the synth. I can't hear it. So I'm grabbing an EQ and I'm sweeping around a boost somewhere in the mid range, upper frequencies to see where do I notice the synth. In this case, in the mix, I noticed it at around 6K. Also did a little bit of a high pass filter here just to clean up low end. And then on the right side of things, got the brass. And here I just did a more subtle boost, only 3 dB boost of around 2K. That's where I felt like the brass cut through. The brass was already cutting through better than the strings and the synth. So I just needed a little bit more of a subtle boost and a little bit of a high pass filter. So together, those EQ moves kind of make a difference. They come to life a bit more, have more presence in a healthy way. The same thing with the drones and the piano. So let's just take the piano, for example. Nice piano sound that Ill had, but a lot of times these sampled pianos are nice and warm, but they don't cut through in a mix. And so I find I have to do a lot of heavy lifting in the upper frequencies. So you can see I'm about to add around 5K, a massive 12 dB shelf boost at 5K. So let's see if this helps. right? You hear a lot of hiss, right? But you also hear a lot of the clarity on the keys, and that's really important for those keys of the pianos to stand out in the mix and not get buried. I want to hear the attack on the piano. That's what makes a piano so cool. There's more orchestral stuff down here. Let's get rid of these EQs as well. With these orchestral parts, I'm doing very similar. I'm finding where in the mid-range can they live? Where can they have their own special spot to stand out? So one of them felt good at around 1K, so I gave it a big boost, 12 dB boost. One felt good at around 2.5, almost 3K, so I gave it a 9 dB boost. And then one felt really good in the upper range with a high shelf boost around 8K, much like the other string patch. So I'm really just using EQs to roll off low end a lot of times with these synths or these keys, and then just find where in the mid range or upper mids can they come to life, and find one frequency to boost that really just make it shine. All right, so then we've got guitars. Let's get rid of these EQs as well. Funny story, those aren't really guitars. They're just keyboards. It was just playing. And I was supposed to re-record them back at my studio, and I just didn't. I just thought, dude, they sound great. So I just EQ'd them. So I'm just using the SSL again to roll off low end and find, I'm doing a classic example of complementary EQ carving. So let me grab these two. They're a double guitar part, one on the left, one on the right. And so the one on the left, I found has a nice boost around 2K. So the one on the right, I do a same cut at that 2K or 1.94K, right? I did a 4 dB, 3 dB boost on one and a 3 dB cut on the same spot on the one on the other side. And then the one on the right, I found it sounded really good at around 870. It had a cool mid-rangey vibe around 870, and I cut 870 on the left. Now, yes, these are the exact same guitar with the exact same tone, but the point is I'm saying to make the mix sound wider, to make you notice the guitars on the edges, I need to EQ them differently. And one of the simplest ways to get that separation is to find where you can boost one and cut that same on the other, and boost the other and cut the same on the one, and you create a simple 6 dB to 10 dB spread depending on how much you boost or cut. So what I'm going to do is just play these two guitars, and I'm going to turn on or off these EQs, and you can hear how they get a little more separation. It's subtle, but it's there. I mean, you notice it if you got good headphones on, that they start to feel like a little different. One has a little more fuzz in one frequency, one has a different vibe in another frequency, as opposed to sounding the same. When you have two things that sound the same on the left and the right, they almost sound like they're coming up the middle. They get lost. And that's when stereo isn't working for you. For stereo to work for you, you gotta have different things on the left and the right. So that's a huge piece there. So I'm just using complementary EQ carving there. Let's get to the vocals. That's where I really want to spend a little bit of time here, because I had some trouble getting my vocals to cut through on this song. So let's just take the lead vocal and...
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
All right, so clean vocal. As far as what I'm processing with the vocal, I'm using the London tube from the Slate Digital Virtual Tube collection. I really love what this does to a lot of things, especially my voice. It adds just some cool thickness. I'm using the SSL EQ. I normally use the Waves one, but since I already had this open, I'm just inserting his Brit 4K, which is his SSL 4000 EQ for just some simple, filtering, rolling off low end with a high pass filter, taking a little cut around that 200 to 300 range where your voice can sound a little muddy and beefy. And also I cut out a little bit around 7K. I thought that it was a little too piercing. And then I'm using a little bit of his FG401 compressor, which is just a sweet sounding compressor. So take a listen to what this sounds like.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
So just a little more forward, a little more clear. Then I'm adding virtual tape machines. There's a lot of Slate on this song. Virtual tape machines because it just sounds really, really cool. You want to use the 2-inch tape type or tape machine, I should say, excuse me, on individual tracks, and then you use the 1/2 inch if you're on the master fader. I tend to like the FG9. I tend to like 30 IPS, but I liked 15 on my voice for some reason today.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
Just brings tracks to life a little bit more, makes them a little more three-dimensional. And then a simple de-esser to work on my S's because they were getting a little harsh.
The damage is done. The damage is done.
Like damage is done. It's a little harsh here.
The damage is done.
Clean here.
The damage is done.
Which is nice. It just felt good at 6K. And just backed off the compression a little bit so it's not too extreme. And that just cleans up the voice, right? Nothing crazy. Before,
the damage is...
I should say after.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
Just makes the vocal a little bit more up front, a little more clean. I found, even with some cool delay and reverb, I found that I was losing my vocal in the mix. So let's get the delay on and the reverb. And here's the room reverb.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear.
I'm using the drum room preset on the stock air reverb that comes with Pro Tools. I'm using this for the drums, but I find that this is just a great preset to give all of your tracks a little bit of stereo width and put them in a real sounding room. Typically, I find myself running an EQ after this to clean it up a little bit, but it actually sounded cool as is. So I'm just sending a little bit, just using a send from the lead vocal to give a little bit of that width, which is nice.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear.
As opposed to that.
We're not playing games, and we came to win.
Right, and then that's my automation one to kick on for Echo Boy, which I'm using the Telray preset, just synced to the tempo on a quarter note delay, and it's just got a cool vibe.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
Now, in the mix, I felt like I was getting lost.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just the frequencies of the synths, if it was the fact that I'm singing, lower notes in the verses, but I really felt like it was getting lost. So I went to the vocal air trick, which is just parallel processing, but on the high frequencies and saturation on the vocal. This is really simple to do. You open up a separate track and you grab everything you can throw at it, primarily some harmonic saturation, and slam it with compression. So I'm cranking shimmer much like I was doing with the drums, cranking the top end shimmer on revival, but any harmonic exciter will do. I'm using tons of compression, but I'm going to go 100% on the mix knob because I'm using this already in parallel. I'm not putting this plugin on the vocal track. I'm making its own track. And so what I can do here is I can just use a simple pre-fader send to send. So I've got it down to -20, but I'll play it directly through here at full volume so you can hear what the vocal sounds like.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
So you're hearing just the vocal air track. It's just really crispy and compressed. So what I've done is I just blend it in with the send so that the two together, it's very interesting.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
What it does is it just gives you a little bit of a presence button. You can just turn that on, and the vocals can cut through a little bit better in the mix. So let's do it in context with the mix, and I'll mute the vocal air track so you can hear the presence go away. It's subtle, but it really helps it stick out.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win. We've given our lives over and now.
Try it again without.
The damage is done. The message is loud and clear. We're not playing games, and we came to win.
And what you have is this tool that you can automate, or you can be more extreme with. You can have more of the Vox Air in the mix, and you can get it as present as you want, or you can dial it back. You have a lot of control because it's happening in parallel, and you're not really EQing or adding presence to the lead vocal itself. You're doing it on this parallel track. So that gave me a lot of control in a dense mix, especially as all the other tracks started to come in. Everything else, the other vocals, it's just compression. I'm just using an 1176 just to give them a little more upfrontness. Nothing really crazy going on there. There's a cool crowd track that Il went and recorded some people that I still don't even know who he recorded last minute. We added to it. So let's get the crowd. That's what it sounds like.
We got this fire burning up. We got this flame that won't go out.
He's got random people, and even it might even be his kids. There's kids in there somewhere.
We got this fire burning up.
So what I did is, well, I wanted to blend that in, so I worked on EQ a little bit, just kind of making it stick out where it sounds cool.
We got this fire burning up. We got this flame that won't go out. We got this fire burning up.
Now it sounds weird. It sounds like I made it more muffly. I felt like it actually cut through when I boosted it at 1K. So it's not as clear, but for what its role is, by sitting alongside all the other vocals, I could hear it better at 1K, let it occupy that space. So I'm doing a 1K boost there, and a little bit of a high pass filter, and then a little bit of compression. And then I wanted to stick it out wider. So I went with the stereo width plugin, and I just made it about 50% wider. So it gets to the past your speakers in a way.
We got this fire burning up. We got this flame that won't go out. We got this fire burning up. It won't go away. We got this fire burning up. We got this flame that won't go out.
Right? So in headphones is when you notice it, but you get more separation and more width. So that's just kind of some fun stuff I'm doing on the crowd track. And finally, on the mix bus, I'm using Mixcentric, which I'm using on 99% of all my mixes these days. It's such a great plugin from Waves. They partner with Greg Wells. It's doing EQ, it's doing saturation and compression. You just dial the knob up or down. I'm usually between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock, and it just adds a lot of sweetness. So without it, this is what the mix sounds like. Get everything back in.
We've got this fire burning up.
Let's get the whole track in.
We've got this fire burning
It just makes everything sound better. And then I'm finally using Slate again. I'm using the FGX mostly for the FG level plugin and not actually for level. I'm using it for, although I had the gain up just to send a rough mix to ill and I wanted to have a little bit of a limiter. I'm using it just for the transient designer stuff, the low punch, the detail, and the dynamic perception knobs. It just adds a little bit of, pump and dynamics into the mix, which is cool.
We've got this fire burning up. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning up, won't go away. We've got this fire.
You just turn those knobs up to 12 o'clock and keep the constant gain monitoring on, and you just get more smack, more excitement, more dynamics. It's really cool. It's some cool voodoo magic. The ITP slider is pretty cool. It's how you're kind of telling it to handle the transients. If you've got aggressive music, crank it up to the hard side. If you want it to be a little more soft and less aggressive, crank it down to the smooth side, or just keep it in the middle. And it's just a great tool to use for some transient design. So the mix really came together because if you take away all the plugins, it's kind of bananas. Let's one track, take them all off.
We've got this fire burning up. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning up, won't go away. We've got this fire burning up. We've got this flame that won't go out. We've got this fire burning up.
There you go. That is how we mixed, and how I mixed came to win. Now, I want to give you something to help you out on your next mix. Do not mix blind. Please don't just grab random plugins. I know in this mix breakdown, I'm showing you it's seemingly haphazardly just to grab random plugins, and here's the settings I'm using, and here's what I did, and then I added this. But that's not how you actually mix in real time. I'm just breaking down what I did, but to know what to do, you need to have a flow. You need to have a system. And I literally follow a step-by-step system. I just have created my own system that makes sense, that allows me to stay on track when I mix. There's 8 steps to the process, and I follow them in order religiously, and it helps me stay focused and helps me do good work. And I want to give you that 8-step process in my mixing checklist. It's just a simple PDF you can download that walks you through the 8 steps, why they're in the order they're in, how to best approach and attack your mix. And so when you download the checklist, I'm also going to give you a couple of bonus videos, some awesome little mixing tricks and some mixing versus mastering stuff that'll help you out. And I want to give you a set of multi-track stems that you can download and use for practice. If you just want to have another song to practice on that's not your own, it's absolutely free, just as a fun little tool to help you out and get some better mixes when you're practicing. Just grab it with a link below or go to mixingchecklist.com. Pretty easy, right? Mixingchecklist.com, and grab that PDF and all the goodies, including the multi-track stems, to a song you can use to practice, and then go mix, and then come back and tell me what results you got with that 8-step mixing checklist process. I can't wait to hear. And of course, if you want to stream or check out the EP, The Good Life, just check out Ill Factor or Graham Cochrane on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music, and you'll see it there, and then you can enjoy the tracks yourself. Hope you're having a great day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you on another video real soon.